Hello, welcome to Keeping a Notebook. I'm Amy Ludwig Vanderwater, and I would like to thank my daughter Hope for this logo incorporating Alex Martin's birds. I love it. This is Betsy the Writing Camper once again, and I will be speaking to you from inside this little space. 2020 is my 11th year of writing a poem each day of National Poetry Month. I always write around a different theme. For this year's poetry project, I have decided to introduce surprise. Each April day, I will share a poems can phrase about writing poetry. I will roll 3 word dice. If a die rolls blank, I will not re-roll it. I will write a poem inspired by 1, 2, or all 3 of the face-up words. Today's Roll the Dice poetry chat is titled Poems Can Repeat Words and Lines.
All right, my dears, let's roll the dice. 1, 2, 3, and a big roll. We have return, tangle, happiness. Return, tangle, and happiness. Hello, my friends. It is day 26 of Keeping a Notebook and day 14 of National Poetry Month. We are continuing on with our series of Poems Can chats, and today's is titled Poems Can Repeat Words and Lines. Our words for today are return, tangle, and happiness. So, I actually had a tricky time today because I liked all 3 of the words. I felt like I could have taken a different path with any one of the words. And I have my little notes here. Return, I jotted, is to go away and come back, or to give something back, like to return a library book. Tangle, hair can get in a tangle. A mess we might call a tangle, like, oh, I'm in such a tangle here if I'm having a problem. A tangle of shrubs is like a thicket. Sometimes a disagreement can be called a tangle, like you and I get into a tangle with each other over something. And happiness, I had a feeling that all is well, like a peaceful, good feeling. So I jotted, what would Little Mouse say about happiness? My sense is she knows a lot about it because she cares about it. Sometimes happiness goes away and then returns. Life gets tangled up like hair gets tangled up. You have to be patient, strand by strand. We can have happiness, get away from it and return to it. And then I asked a question, does happiness go anywhere? So I started a lot of different poems here, and I jotted I might write about a bag of happiness or a box of happiness, and about happiness hiding, that happiness can get all tangled up. And someday I might go back to those and actually play with those ideas. But in the end, I decided to write a very brief few lines, another poem by Little Mouse. So this is called Poem on a Maple Leaf. If you want more happiness, break your happiness. Give some to the other mice. When every mouse has happiness, we call that paradise. So I thought I might add a couple more lines on the bottom there. I thought I might add, I have lived a good long time. It is my turn to give advice. And then I thought, you know what? I don't want to clutter it up. Sometimes you can write a poem and then you might have a neat line you feel like adding. And sometimes the adding doesn't actually add something. And in this case, I didn't think it did. So I just kept, if you want more happiness, break your happiness, give some to the other mice. When every mouse has happiness, we call that paradise. And I kept it simple in that way. I did play with line breaks in different ways. Sometimes when I go from handwriting to typing, I just changed the spacing to see how the poem looks, different ways, spaced out. And I ended up keeping it just the way I read it to you, just a 4-line, simple little verse. So that's what I have there for today. But I was asking myself, why did I probably get this idea? Like, what made me connect happiness and Little Mouse to this idea of giving? And I think it might be that I was reading a book, and in the book, it referred to the allegory of the long spoons, which is a story, a parable that's told across different religions and different cultures about people in one place and people in another place, all having access to food, but having the same utensils, which were very, very long spoons. So if I had a really long spoon and food in front of me, I'd have the spoon and I would not be able to bend my hand in the right way to get the spoon. My arm wouldn't be quite long enough to feed myself. So in this allegory or parable or story, The people in the one place actually starve because they can't feed themselves with the spoons. But what do you think happens in the other place? What happens in the other place is the people take these very long spoons and they use them to feed each other. And in that place, the people are fed, they're taken care of because they are taking care of each other. So I read that this week. I'd heard it before, but it came up in a book that I was reading. And I think somewhere in the back there, it stayed. And what happens is when we read things and when we pay attention to things in the world, they lodge themselves in our minds and in our hearts in ways, and they come out in our writing. So I'm not 100% sure. I can't do a dot to dot connecting what I read to today's poem, but I actually have a feeling that it may have come from there. So think about your own reading. You might want to try doing some reading that's different than reading you normally do and say, am I seeing connections between what I read and what I write? So as always, so good to see you. Have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.
Poem on a Maple Leaf by Little Mouse only has 23 words in the whole poem. 3 of those words are happiness. Which words and lines might you repeat in your poem today or on another day? Little Mouse continues to write, just like we do. People have asked where I got my word dice. Some are antiques, some are from a vintage Scrabble sentence cube game, some are Taylor Molly's metaphor dice, some are HiCubes. I just picked from my collections for the ones I wish to use. A young writer named Mara, she used regular dice and then wrote a code of words so that she could roll a number and choose the associated word. What a great idea! The words I rolled today were return, tangle, and happiness. Feel free to use them if you wish, or not if you don't. I wish you a very happy and healthy 14th day of National Poetry Month. Remember, poems can repeat words and lines.